All right, man, peace. So, brothers, first of all, I have to give a shout out to Mr. Luka Doncic, the star player of the Dallas Mavericks, who's trending towards superstardom. And I don't want to jump the gun, but I do have to say this. In his first 11 games of the season, he's playing as well as any second-year player that I've ever seen with my own two eyes in this current era of the NBA. And it's very suitable that even though I'm going to be talking about Luka Doncic in this video, that the segment that we see here is starting off with James Harden. Because that is who Luka Doncic reminds me of. A right-handed, Caucasian, taller version of James Harden who might not quite be as athletic as James Harden is, but probably has twice the basketball IQ. So it's going to be very interesting to see exactly where Luka Doncic's career goes from here and what Mark Cuban does to build the appropriate team around him, because he plays in that LeBron James, James Harden, Russell Westbrook style of dominating the basketball at the top of the key and making decisions while running screen and roll. He just does it extremely well. You can tell that he has modeled his game after his hero, LeBron James. Is he the athletic standout that LeBron James is? Of course not. But he does have a lot of similarities to James Harden's type of game, except a lot of the hijinks have been left out. I don't think that Luka's going to win the MVP this year because his team is not going to win enough games. But I do think that the Mavericks are going to make the playoffs. He's certainly going to be starting in this year's All-Star game, probably in the backcourt with James Harden. And within the next 3 to 4 years, he's going to win the MVP award. I have no doubt about that. So anyway, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
Did you see Luka Doncic last night? 42 points, 11 rebounds, 12 assists. That is his 6th triple-double in the Mavericks' 13 games so far this season. And again,
let me also say this. I did a video about Luka Doncic a few months ago in which I highlighted the tattoo that he has on his left forearm, and I speculated in my view on whether or not he could be an MK athlete. At this point, I have very little doubt that he is, but we'll see what transpires over the next few years and how the NBA markets him and how his career starts to explode, because opportunities are going to be made readily available to him, and certain key aspects of his allegiances and his origins are going to be depicted in a subliminal way through commercials. So that's always going to be something to watch for.
42 points. The only person other than him to knock in a 40-point-plus triple-double before he turned 21 years old is LeBron James. So that's some company. Luka was off to a monster start to the game. He had 17 guys in the first quarter alone. Yeah, just a little that. And he finished with plenty of fire, too, dropping in this 3 to seal the win for Dallas. Honestly, Luka's rebounding has been just as impressive as his scoring.
Yes, it has. And he plays a very appealing brand of basketball. It's far easier to watch than James Hardhead's because he doesn't jack up wild shots like James Hardhead does. That's why his field goal percentage is discernibly higher than James Harden's. And as I've already mentioned, he's not someone who's flopping all across the court and looking for fouls every time he has the basketball in his hands. So right now, I have to say once again, he's trending towards possibly being a superstar in the next few years. Now, in order for me to consider you a superstar, you have to show that you can be dominant in the regular season and also in the postseason. So that's going to be the next step for Luka Doncic. He has to win a championship within the next 3 or 4 years. And I do believe that once the NBA marketing train starts to hitch their wagon to his star, and he gets increasingly more favorable referee calls, and he starts to understand the American game better, we'll see where it goes. But I do think that within the next 3 to 4 years, he's going to win at least one regular season MVP. He's going to have to adapt to the physicality of the playoffs. That's where we're really going to see how great he is. Because it's one thing to light up Phoenix or Orlando, something like that in the regular season. He's going to have to go mano a mano with players like James Hardhead, even with his hero LeBron James. The Golden State Warriors are going to make a comeback next year. So it's going to be an extreme litmus test for him, but he's off to a great start this season. I truly cannot state how impressed I've been with his play thus far this season. He is a bit of a liability on defense, but at least he tries.
This run. Check out this sequence against Cleveland. He defends Tristan Thompson, bigger than him, gets the board, initiates the offense, gets the board again, kicks it out to Hardaway Jr., and when there's nothing doing there, Luka's just going to drain the 3 himself. I mean, come on. Again, the way today's NBA works lends itself more to all of this, with more spacing on the floor. Guys like Luka can have more cracks at rebounding in the first place. But getting to watch Luka take advantage of all of it, along with everything else, has been just, well, phenomenal, in the words of Brett Carlisle.
This guy can do anything he wants to on a basketball court.
Now, Rick Carlisle was a teammate of Larry Bird on that legendary 1986 Celtics team. So he's seen great Caucasian players before. Many people are apt to try to compare Luka Doncic to Larry Bird. I don't really see any of Larry Bird's game in Luka Doncic. Of course, Larry Bird was dominant in the post with his back to the basket. He was also a dominant face-up scorer, phenomenal floor game, arguably the highest basketball IQ of all time. Once again, when I watch Luka Doncic play, he reminds me far more of a right-handed version of James Harden, just with a higher basketball IQ and a couple of more inches in height. But due to his higher basketball IQ, he has a better understanding of when to shoot the basketball and when to pass it. So that's why his efficiency ratings, I believe, are going to be higher than a James Harden, at the very least, if not this year, within the next couple of years.
And, you know, he's having just one of those magical runs right now. And it's a phenomenal thing to watch. It's a phenomenal thing to be a part of. And, you know, his teammates, you know, we're all just, you know, kind of along for the ride here.
It's very obvious that Rick Carlisle has received the memo. Promote and sell Luka Doncic as much as possible. And even they understand that Luka is pretty much just a Caucasian version of James Harden, because you see they have them juxtaposed here on that little TV screen.
This really is such a truly fun time to be an NBA fan. Every time you turn on the TV, something magic can happen. Anything is truly possible. It's only November. So Tracy, Luka does not turn 21 until February. He's already putting up these crazy numbers on a good team despite his youth. Tracy's just like, wait, he's not 21 yet? Is he ready to contend for an MVP this season?
No, not yet. The MVP this year is either going to go to LeBron James, James Harden, or Giannis Antetokounmpo. Those are the only three players that I could see reasonably vying for the MVP award. Luka might have the numbers, but I don't think that his team is going to have the success that it's going to take for his name to be thrown into that hat with a realistic expectation for him to win. That's probably not going to come until next year or the year after that. But this year is going to come down to LeBron James, James Harden, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. So the matchups to watch are when Milwaukee play the Lakers, when the Rockets play the Lakers, when the Rockets play Milwaukee. The Rockets have already lost once to the Milwaukee Bucks. So those one-on-one matchups or those team matchups are going to have a very heavy influence on who is declared the regular season MVP award winner. This is not Luka's year yet.
He's contending, all right. I mean, the man is averaging 30, 11, and 9 in 13 games so far.
With a high shooting percentage.
I am highly impressed with this guy. I'm impressed with Dallas Mavericks organization for seeing this, you know, making a trade to get this guy, trading the pick that would possibly have landed Trae Young. But this guy, I mean, they saw it. And for Rick Carlisle to say he's, you know, he could do everything on the basketball court, and he's even, you know, shocked by what he's seeing out of him.
He can do everything. And what impresses me most is his competitive drive. You can tell that he's a player out there who's a difference maker. When he's on the floor, everything gravitates towards him. And there are very few players, there are very few special players in the NBA who are like that. That when they're on the floor, all the action seems to gravitate towards them on both offense and defense. Even Larry Bird, even though he was not considered a great defensive player, he would always come up with the big steal when it counted. Go back and watch that Game 4 in the 1984 finals between the Lakers and the Celtics. No, I believe it's the 1985 finals. Game 4 in the LA Forum. And watch the amount of defensive plays that Larry Bird made in that fourth quarter. They were incredible. For a guy who was never given a great amount of credit as a defensive player, Larry Bird was always where he needed to be to make the clutch defensive play. And Luka Doncic has very similar qualities in that fashion. In that fashion, I will compare him to Bird.
One of the greatest players to ever play this game, Dirk Nowitzki, right? For the amount of years he coached him. So having Luke be his successor, I mean, this is unbelievable, the things that he's doing. And what impresses me the most is he's averaging 11 rebounds. Luka is not athletic, guys. He can't jump a lick. He barely can jump.
Well, a lot of rebounding is not really about your vertical leap. It's more about anticipation and understanding how the ball is going to deflect off the rim.
He's out there averaging 11 rebounds. I mean, he can't.
When Dennis Rodman was out there averaging 17, 18 rebounds a game for the Chicago Bulls in the late 90s, He was no longer that outstanding athlete that he was in the late 80s with the Pistons, but his anticipation was non-pareil.
Everything on the basketball court. I love watching him play.
And they need his rebounding too, because they're not a great rebounding team. He's the best rebounder on their team. When you vote for MVP, as you know, you got to list 5 guys.
Right.
He is 15 games in. He is 100% on the ballot. Now, I'm not sure he's above Harden, LeBron, or Giannis. Maybe the eye of the beholder kind of thing.
Right.
He's 100% on the ballot, and if he keeps playing like this, it's going to be a really hard vote at the end of the season, because what he's doing.
No, if he keeps playing like this and somehow he could lead the Mavericks to low 50s in win total, then his name would have to be seriously considered. But I don't think the Mavericks are going to win that amount of games. I think that somewhere around the middle of the season, they're going to start to peter out and probably end the season with somewhere in the vicinity of 43 to 45 wins. Will that be enough to make the playoffs? Who knows?
The numbers are the numbers. What he's doing is MVP basketball.
He's your number 3
Yeah,
on that list?
he's my number 3 right now.
After who?
LeBron, Giannis, and him.
So
What's truly hurting him, or what truly has hurt him, are those 2 losses to the Knicks. The Mavericks are 8-5. If they beat the Knicks twice, they're 10-3. They have one of the best records in the NBA. If all they do is beat the Knicks twice.
James Harden, you put him.
Well, James Harden, he struggled in the first couple of games of the season. Horrible shooting percentage. But
keep it real, Tracy. You think that James Harden is a big gimmick. That's what you think. And I understand it, because he's playing in an era where he's allowed to face up, go in between the legs 5,000 times, and they cannot hand check him to throw him off his rhythm. So it makes it way easier for him to get to the basket, especially with 4 shooters out there. It clears out the lane. And then he has that mechanism, that shooting mechanism that he does when he takes threes, where he kicks both his legs forward and still draws fouls. I mean, it amazes me. And people wonder why, quote-unquote, basketball fans don't like James Harden. He always appears to be trying to manipulate the rules.
Luka's been consistent. I mean, James is putting up numbers, but he also is averaging 25 shots a game.
He's one of the most fun
Tracy don't like James Harden.
guys to watch, and I'm glad you highlighted that sequence in Cleveland, because the shooting, the step backs, and the passing, that gets all the attention. But what he does in those little in between moments when he doesn't have the ball, little give and go kind of stuff, that's where his brilliance really shines through, almost more than the other stuff.
I just love that.
Yes, he has a great floor game. I have to give him credit. He has a great floor game in an era where very few players have a great floor game. Most of these players today are so stat driven, and they don't know how to win. That's how I know, and that's how I can see that Doncic is going to surpass a lot of these guys in the next couple of years, because the basketball IQ is so low for so many of these players who actually have more natural talent than him.
It's because he just did everything there, right?
Yeah.
He did everything. We have the chart here. So there are only 3 21-year-olds, and Luka will be 21 by the time MVP voting happens, in the last 30 years who have made that top 5 that Zach is referring to in MVP voting. Look who it is. So it's good company.
Yeah.
Saying, see if you can join them.
I have to believe if he could sustain this for the whole season and the Dallas Mavericks makes the playoffs, he will have a good chance of breaking in that top 2.
Can we just point out the chart, how ridiculous it is that Tim Duncan was on the MVP ballot as a rookie? Tim Duncan, I know he was 22, he's a 4-year college. He walked into the league and was an MVP candidate. That does not...
Tim Duncan never improved as an NBA player because he was such a finished product his first season in the league, straight out of Wake Forest. There was really no need for him to improve. He was an unbelievable rebounder, offensive player, and defensive player from his very first game. So when I say that there was no real growth there for him as a player, it's not an insult. It's really a compliment to how great and diverse his offensive and defensive skill set was coming out of college. I believe Michael Jordan also finished in the top 5 in MVP voting as a rookie as well, if I remember correctly. I'm not quite sure about Shaq, but I believe Michael Jordan finished in the top 5 back in 1985. But don't quote me on that.
Does not happen. That didn't happen with LeBron. Like, that doesn't happen. Now he walked onto a good team that had like 1 year tanking.
Right.
Tim Duncan is just ridiculous. Just an all-time ridiculous player.
Yeah, I'm glad. Thank you for letting us. Nobody really was clued in on that. So
He's so quiet and unassuming. Like Tim Duncan versus Shaq, Tim Duncan versus Kobe. Like he's. People are going to underrate him historically, I think.
Absolutely. I'm on record as stating that Tim Duncan is probably one of the top 3 most underrated players in the history of the NBA. Right there with Bill Russell and Moses Malone. Those 3 guys get criminally underrated. And you could throw Isaiah Thomas in there as well, and Dr. J.
He's got and a coaching resume now to boot.
Yeah, that's right.
Has. I want to.
But anyway, that's basically it on that. We'll see how things go for Luka Doncic for the rest of this season. Barring injury, I can definitely see him finishing in the top 5 in MVP voting. So peace.